Well, good morning, viewers. Today we have a 2014 Honda Accord, and it's here because the money light is on. And the customer had scanned it with some kind of code reader and retrieved a code for the temp sensor being out of range. And they've changed the temp sensor, but the code won't clear. So we're going to scan this thing. And looking at the temp sensor, it's underneath the, above the thermostat housing. I guess this is a thermostat housing, or the, yeah, it looks like a vacuum pump or something on the back of this engine. A high pressure fuel pump is here. It's underneath this plastic cover, and I can see it's plugged in. So we're going to scan it and see what code it has to offer us and look at the temperature reading. Okay, so I've got the VCM connected to my DLC connector, and I'm loading the vehicle history. I've worked on this vehicle before in the past for other things. I think we did a timing chain on this thing, actually. 142,000 kilometers on it. Let's go straight into the engine control computer and look at the codes. Survey says, permanent code, ECT sensor 2. So that would lead me to believe that there are two coolant temp sensors, 2185 and 2183. And maybe they changed the wrong one. I'm writing this down, 2185 and 2183. Let's have a look at some data. Normally, if they list them as ECT1 and ECT2, there's more than one. Most used data. Let's try that. Well, intake air temperature sensor 2, ECT. Okay, this one's minus 40. And this one is 20 Celsius. I just drove it in. I'm going to unplug the sensor that they replaced and see what happens. I'm going to try to unplug it anyways. That's why I didn't want to get it too hot. So they changed the wrong temp sensor, or there's a wiring problem to the wrong temp sensor. Anyway, so you can see that ECT1 went to minus 40. So we have to find out where ECT2 lives. You notice that caused the cooling fans to kick on. I'm plugging the sensor back in now. You likely need to cycle the key. So there might be a temp sensor on the bottom of the rad. Well, I'm going to look it up in service literature. So we're going to look at what codes it's set now. So that P2118 is for the coolant temp sensor 1. So let's look in component level information in here and see if it tells me in the Snap-on tool. Guided component tests, North American, Honda Accord, engine controls, ECT sensor, component information. ECT1 threaded into the left side of cylinder head water outlet. ECT2 threaded into the left side of radiator bottom tank. Well, I knew I was going to have to lift this thing. So we're underneath the vehicle here, and I pulled some trim down, and you can see that temp sensor screwed into the bottom of the rad on the left corner like it said. And you can see some electrical tape. And just below the electrical tape, you can see the green death coming out of the wire. So the wire has been repaired. I think this vehicle was in an accident a couple of years ago, and the radiator may have been replaced. So we're going to try and take some more plastic off of here so we can disconnect that connector and see if we can repair those wires properly. So as Eric O would say, there's the money shot. Somebody's fixed this. So I managed to splice a couple of sections of wire in there with soldered terminals and heat shrink, and tie wrapped it to this harness here. So we're going to see what the temp sensor reading shows now. So we're going to clear the codes. Say yes. And we're going to look at codes again one more time. No codes. And we're going to look at data, make sure that temperature reading is realistic. Most used data. Coolant temperature sensor number 2 is 19 Celsius and coolant temperature sensor number 1 is 20 Celsius. I haven't run it other than driving it in the shop 100 feet. So I'm sure this is going to be fine. As Ivan would say, no parts required. We're going to put this back together, put the shield on, and ship it. Thanks for watching.